My educational background is I have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in mechanical engineering. I've been in the industry now for 40 years, roughly. My industry experience is right out of college, I started working for a utility, and I was their industrial service engineer, basically their contact person for a lot of the industry in the area, the Frito-Lays and Hormels and people like that. From there, I went and worked for a consulting engineering firm that was a research firm primarily, but they also did some energy audits and things of that nature. And that's where I actually first got involved with commissioning process, because the owner of the company was working with ASHRAE to develop a commissioning process back in the early 80s. I left that firm and went to another consulting firm doing an energy project where they were the in-house consultant for one of the first rebate programs in the country for energy conservation, demand-side management. Then I left there and I started my own company doing consulting engineering, where I was doing mostly energy analysis and energy audits for clients throughout the state of Wisconsin and outside the state of Wisconsin. But I also, at the same time, started getting into facility practices, facility management, morphed it into a little bit of indoor air quality, and then kind of drifted back, primarily focused on energy conservation. Around that time, I started to realize that with the work I was doing, it was a one-person firm. I did have some support, but was able only to do 1 or 2 buildings at a time in energy conservation, and I wanted to be able to expand out and have more of an impact on reducing energy use around the nation. And so I looked into ways to start teaching, because I had done some professional development work, and that professional development work showed me that I enjoyed it. I liked talking with others and presenting ideas and having them pick up on some of it so they could do that type of thing in their own jobs. That's why I did start contacting colleges around the Milwaukee area to find out if they had any positions for teaching part-time. And that's when I did go work for a university for a year, just teaching one class. But then I moved over to where I am right now, Milwaukee Area Technical College, and developed their Sustainable Facility Operations degree. And I didn't actually lay out the initial concept of that program, but I wrote most of the classes for it and taught most of the classes for that. So that's kind of my foray into getting into teaching. My passion for teaching actually started really early from the standpoint of looking at energy conservation and looking at our world resources for primarily oil at the time, and has evolved ever since then, to the point where I knew I could have impact on reducing energy consumption, but I would have a lot more impact if I taught others how to do this. So by teaching it, more people would go out and have the impact on reducing energy, not only locally, but hopefully nationally. The program title is Building Automation Systems, which is BAS. And the program was developed by myself and a couple other people at my college, a lot of it drawing from what I learned with Best Center, to address a local need that we had with a lot of the vendors, contractors, looking for control technicians to help them out with the work they're doing. So the main push for the program is to teach the basics of what a control technician does. They didn't want the higher end. They didn't want us focusing on a particular vendor. They just wanted to be able to provide the basics of controls so that they could take and hire somebody on and train them then at that point for their particular vendor specific applications. So with that, they didn't want us to have a multi-year program, just a 1-year program, get them taught, get them a base level understanding so that they could take and groom them. We have one capstone class. It's the last of 11 courses that they can take, and it has to be the last class because it draws upon all the other 10 courses to make it effective. the way I look at our capstone class is the student becomes the contractor or becomes the supplier or vendor, and I'm their client. And I say, okay, I have this air handling system in my B wing that currently is not controlled properly. I need you to come in, tell me what type of controls I need to put on there, how to control it, and then start laying out that project for us. That's an example of what our capstone class would be, where they're actually acting as the contractor. So we were fortunate. We had 2 rooms right next to each other that were housing a program that really was uncharacteristic for the part of the building that we're in. It was EMS being taught there. So we moved them out to another part of the campus, and then we took and gutted the 2 rooms and then retrofitted them to be focused on BAS, Building Automated Systems, and also a sheet metal apprenticeship program. The sheet metal apprenticeship program had 3 of the same courses that our BAS program had, so it was a natural fit that way. The gutting out also meant that we were opening up the ceiling cavities so people could see what's happening in the building from all the piping that's up there and things like that. So it's two side-by-side rooms, with one room was more of a typical classroom style, but it had a heat pump in the corner that anybody could work on and play around with. The other half of it is another classroom, which was our lab, and the lab was set up such that we had 5 air handling units installed. These are only 1,000+ square foot rooms, so they're not that big. So the air handlers are very small ones. And we took the air handlers and set them up in that room along with a chilled water system and a hot water system, all contained within that 1,000+ square feet, so that we could then have the students work on it and they could effectively see all the components of a commercial building with hot water, chilled water, and then set up the controls for all of that. The cost of getting that all up and running was, my understanding, somewhere around $200,000 that we invested in it. And there's been a lot of money after the fact and used on the program, because the sheet metal people actually, the students installed all the trainers we had, the air handling units. They installed the chilled water system, the hot water system. So some of the costs of that installation part was picked up by that program. We also had equipment donated by a major vendor for the controls part, which is Johnson Controls Medisys system. And as far as upkeeping of those systems, Johnson Controls has stepped in 6 years, 7 years later here and provided new controllers, provided new software, and we're still in the process of wrapping that part of it up over the summertime here, where we're going to get laptops that are another cost that being picked up by the college to include some of the newest software from Johnson Controls. So we have these different ways, from donations, internal money, and some grant money, because I have some controllers that I picked up as a result of things we've been doing with Best Center and things like that. So energy, sustainability were part of the development of the curriculum. So in the DACM, our industry experts who came in to influence it wanted there to be an energy component to this technician diploma. And that resulted in development of, was actually taking courses we had in our Sustainable Facility Operations program and modifying them to match up with what a control technician would be using. And those 3 courses were measurement and verification, energy auditing, and commissioning. So from an energy conservation standpoint, there's 3 courses that directly address that. However, in all the other classes, we are talking about energy conservation also, because we have to have that as a continual part of what the students are exposed to if they're ever going to continually focus on that. The sustainability components also come into play in the same fashion. The kind of energy conservation and sustainability go hand in hand. The trick going forward is right now I do the teaching for most of the courses, and I'm transitioning it over to another instructor. The trick will be to get that injected into the curriculum in a way that just doesn't naturally flows for me, but for another instructor that may not come right out. So I'm in the process of working on getting that to be actually ironclad in the curriculum materials that I pass off to him, so that it is discussed in all the other classes on a regular basis and not just covered in the 3 energy focused courses. Our college is located in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We have 4 campuses, well, 3 campuses and a satellite campus that are spread out through Milwaukee County, and also the adjoining county, there's 1 campus there. So it's pretty spread out. The students coming into our programs are from the Milwaukee area, and so it's quite a mix of different backgrounds. But MATC is a majority school. So, and in fact, right now it's transitioning over to a Hispanic school. I forget the correct term for it that they use, but they're going to focus more on that population. But we have a lot of our students coming from the underserved area, so there are a lot of needs that are there that we have to address. I am seeing a demographic shift towards more Latino students, in part because I think our college is focusing on that, and in part because the Milwaukee area is increasing in a number of Latino population. And so it's a major part. You know, one of the stories I was telling somebody just the other day is that what used to be the old Polish neighborhoods now are the Latino neighborhoods in Milwaukee. So it's kind of funny. There's a Allen Bradley clock tower, a huge clock tower in the Milwaukee area that everybody refers to as the Polish moon, which is now over a totally different ethnic background.
Interesting. Do you have any challenges engaging and motivating your students in a technical education program?
There are a lot of challenges to engaging and motivating students. I think it's probably been going on for quite a while. But what I've seen is from when I started teaching back in 2009 to now, there's been a general shift in those challenges. When I first started teaching, it was right after the recession. And that time frame, there were a lot of people who were looking to change their careers so they could get back into the workforce, get up and running. Now there's more of a drive to find people to come into the college from all these different areas within Milwaukee, the underserved areas of Milwaukee. And there's just a lot of challenges that people from those areas have to overcome that make it more difficult in the classroom to keep them engaged, keep them working on things. So what I've seen in talking with people from around the nation, different technical colleges, is that they're kind of struggling with some of the same things. What do you address with a building automation system program? And it seems that we really need to focus on this basic level of training for people so they have a good understanding of all the fundamentals. And that's one area that I think is important in an aspect of what our program addresses, because that was called out specifically by our industry partners, is we need that basic education level for these people to walk into. So something that can be mimicked by other colleges is that fundamental basis. And whether they're going to teach it in a technical diploma like ours or go into associate's degree, it wouldn't matter. They still need that basic level of it. The interesting areas that I feel we have are our use of the campus as a living lab. That engagement with students on actual projects seems to make a huge difference in the way that they're engaged, the way that they learn. And it's all tactile. You know, they want to be working with their hands on something. They want to feel, just like everybody wants to feel like they're making a difference with what they're doing. And in the courses, I've been able to work that in so they did get that impression. And they get real life experience that actually helps different people, including the owner, MATC in this case. And we do that with other entities. A year ago, we went to a local nonprofit and did the same thing to help them understand their building better and give them ideas on ways that they can operate it better. So that even though while it's a difficult thing to do to reach out to other entities and bring real life projects into the classroom, because you got to kind of change it all the time, it really helps engage the students. And you still, even though you do that, have to have some of the basic labs and exercises that they go through that don't relate to just that project, but you can tie it in. But having to change it every year is a difficult process to go through. One of the best practices that I actually have found really helpful is there's a lot of discussion about open educational resources, OER. We had a book in our technical diploma that was used through 3 different classes. There's a big push by the school to go away from textbooks because that's an additional cost for our students. At the same time, I've been experiencing with our courses that it's much better to have students working hands-on. They learn better by doing lab activities. They learn better by doing. So the books were, while relatively simple to be able to teach from and use for educational purposes, they just weren't as effective, I felt. So we shifted away from the book using OER grants to focus on changing over to new labs, more hands-on activities, and that really seems to have engaged the students more, gives them more, I like to call it kicks at a can, but more of repetition with their hands, so to get that manual dexterity, as well as seeing the physical aspects of what they're doing connect to the theory that we do talk about in the classroom. When we get students in, it tends to be that they start in the fall, because that's the way the curriculum's written. You start in the fall and you go through the spring semester, then you graduate. We have had a lot of problems with getting people into the program, so the numbers are pretty low. I do, however, find that the ones that do come in, there seems to be a lot of trail off of them quitting. I don't see much jobbing out in our program, but trying to retain them to get them through to completion is a challenge because of the different challenges they have in their personal lives, a lot of them being from the underserved areas of Milwaukee. And that just kind of really does have a hindrance on their completion rates at this point. We have multiple retention strategies. One of them is that the instructor themselves reach out to these people all the time to help to engage them, to find out what difficulties they have. We have all these different modalities for us to do that. They can meet with us outside of class. We have set office hours. We can contact each other via email, text, or video chats. That all helps out. And we do, when we see people slipping, we have internal programs at our college that will also connect with them and try to encourage them to get back engaged. So we do have those retention policies. We have some retention coaches on staff at campus that can work with them also. But the primary impetus does fall upon the instructor to do that retention type of outreach. When we first started the program, a student with no background, this is 6, 7 years ago, a student with no background would come out of the program with the ability to make $40,000 to $50,000 a year. Now, the starting wage is minimum $45,000 and probably up to $50,000, $55,000. So it's increased over time. The major benefit, though, is in a relatively short period of time, maybe 5 years, maybe as long as 10 years, they're going to be easily over $100,000. So the wages are really good. They're with companies that have a lot of benefits, and they can basically write their ticket at a certain point if they really do have the ambition to really get into a type of career they enjoy, because there's lots of different career paths within BAS that they can take, and to actually have a really good income over time. Over the years, our industry advisory committee, which we call advisory committee, has remained pretty stable for about half of the people on it, but it's changed the other half quite a bit. Right now, we're at a point where we have a very low number of them. I'm in the process of building that back up. So I'm hoping, right now we have about 10 people. I'm hoping by the end of the year we'll have 14, which is kind of our target point. And I'm looking to keep it well mixed up as far as the type of industry, because I want to split it between 3 different areas, maybe 4. One of them would be vendors that they sell the controls, and they're installing the controls. So vendors and contractors. A second one is geared towards those type of facility management firms, real estate type firms, such as CBRE or Jones Lang LaSalle or Cushman Wakefield. And then the third area is building owners like MATC, Northwest Mutual, that they have a significant number of buildings that they require to have a controls technician on site to work with things. And kind of a fourth area that's developing, which I really always kind of intend to be there and matches very well with the energy conservation track part of this, those 3 courses I mentioned earlier, is consulting firms that do commissioning type of work. And one of my students right now just got a job with a local mechanical/architectural firm doing exactly that. And quite honest, it's the type of job I wish I had back a decade ago. And here he's doing it, and he's only in his mid-30s. So kind of a dream job for me. But those are our target markets. So this field, since we started out, has always needed more technicians. There's always been demand for this since we started the program back in 2016. And that only continues to increase. And as the technologies change and evolve, we're seeing more and more of the Internet of Things, the power over Ethernet, that add to the controls field. And so all of this is taken into effect of what we're not only teaching in the classroom, but the demand for more of these type of jobs out in the field. So it's been evolving, and as far as I see trend-wise, only going to be increasing because of the technology in buildings and the drive towards net zero carbon, the drive towards high performance buildings is only going to increase over time, increasing not only the value of our existing students, but the need for more of them. I think if you look at most technical colleges around the nation, you'll find that they all have advisory committees that draw upon the industry to influence their curriculum. And this constant input from them helps to keep the program current and also keep it on top of what the students need to know to get a job when they get out. The shift that we had from sustainable facility operations to a BAS program happened because the sustainable facility operations had a name recognition issue that wasn't directly related to a job within industry. And the building automated systems has a direct correlation to jobs in the industry. And that's why this transition took place within our college. The majority of students, when they graduate, are working for contractors, vendors. Those are companies that either sell the controls directly, like Johnson Controls, and they do install work, or contractors, which they're a vendor that sells a particular type of control or multiple types of manufacturers' controls, and they need to have control technicians so that they can get the equipment installed and operating properly. They also have the service side of it. So there's the new construction and install side and the service side that takes care of going out to sites when there are problems with their customers and having the control technician address the issues directly for the customer. And they tend to be for the higher end needs on customer controls.